Welcome to this episode of CyberHer Podcast brought to you by Dakota State University. I'm Alexis from CyberHer.
And I'm Mary from CyberHer.
We are thrilled to introduce our listeners to Cynthia Hetherington today. Cynthia Hetherington is the founder and president of Hetherington Group, a consulting, publishing, and training firm that leads in due diligence, corporate intelligence, and cyber investigations by keeping pace with the latest security threats and assessments. Cynthia has authored 3 books on how to conduct investigations and annually trains over 7,200 investigators, security professionals, attorneys, accountants, auditors, military intelligence professionals, and federal, state, and local agencies on best practices. For more than 25 years, Ms. Hetherington has led national and international investigations in corporate due diligence and fraud, personal asset recovery, and background checks. With a specialization in the financial, pharmaceutical, and telecommunications industries, her investigations have recovered millions of dollars in high-profile corruption cases.
We are also joined by Anya McCormick and Rachel Cronenfeld. Anya joined Hetherington Group in 2017 as an investigative analyst. Her primary tasks involve specialist desktop research and analysis of public record and open source information in support of business due diligence and other investigative projects. Anya holds a Bachelor of Arts in Criminology with minors in Forensic and Investigative Studies and Psychology from West Virginia University. In 2019, she received a Master of Arts in Criminal Justice with a specialization in police administration and an advanced certificate in criminal investigations from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Rachel joined Hetherington Group in 2016 and is their lead investigator. She monitors current events and information on the internet, identifies security threats, and conducts online risk assessment analysis for Hetherington Group clients. Before joining Hetherington Group, Rachel interned at the Regional Operations Intelligence Center for the New Jersey State Police in their Major Crimes Unit, where she worked side by side with detectives to uncover threats and fraud through gathering and analyzing information. Rachel holds a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Ramapo College of New Jersey.
Cynthia is a leader in open source intelligence. Cynthia, can you tell our audience what that is?
It's really exciting to be here to share with you about what open source intelligence is and how it can affect our society, our clients, and our business needs. OSINT, as it's commonly called in the industry, is the accumulation, the location, and the analysis of information found through resources that are accessible and as we use the word open, meaning that they're permissibly retrievable. So databases with public record information, newspaper articles, social media sites, things that you might see on the street. Open source, oftentimes we put to the connotation of just being on a database or computer, but open source means any available or accessible information which might be resolved into a case matter or research answer.
So you founded the Hetherington Group 20 years ago. Can you tell us why you founded it and what you guys do?
Why I founded the Hetherington Group is kind of a fun and interesting story, but I'll keep it brief because I could go on and on. I was a librarian 25 years ago. So I was Google. You know, I was the original Google before Sergey Brin ever decided to put a search engine together. I was answering questions in the public library using all the resources that were accessible. Yet the internet obviously did happen. Google did show up. People started resourcing the internet. As a librarian, allowed me to consider that public records were not just within the 4 walls of a building that I occupied and worked from. Information was accessible from all over the planet, and you just had to know how to access it through the internet. So I became very interested in internet technology and in finding information through the different networks. As I started incorporating into the public library, the law enforcement community started coming to my library to ask that technology librarian questions. And frankly, a cop coming in off the street trying to solve a crime, asking me a question that would be really integral to answering and solving and, you know, creating conclusions to criminal elements was a heck of a lot more exciting than looking up the Consumer Reports review of someone's refrigerator. So I saw a business case and a business need where there was none. There were no OSINT investigators 25 years ago. It didn't exist. There were just people who used the internet to find stuff. I built a business model around it. In our world, that means being a licensed private investigator. That's the, the oversight to this and how it kind of encapsulates into our world, and just continue to grow. Now, as the internet has grown, so have I, and I've been able to, through all that nurturing, development of skills, and frankly, the foundational knowledge of being an information professional, to relay that to other professionals like Rachel, Anya, and the rest of my team, and of course the rest of the cyber world, where now young women are being inspired to take on this role. See, a real important thing to stress, you don't have to come from a computer forensics background or a criminal justice background. Mary, you just need to come from a curious background. A librarian turned investigator, I mean, obviously this feels open for all of us.
That is an incredible story. So Cynthia, what would you say your main inspiration was to form Hetherington Group?
Money. And it sounds funny, but think about it. We all love to do certain things, and it's inspirational to do them. We call those hobbies. If you like to work on puzzles, or you like to play around on computers or gaming, that's exciting. But if you can get paid to do what you love doing, that becomes the idea of being an entrepreneur, of taking what you're really passionate about and turning it into a career that people will pay you for. There is a trade-off, and you should be very careful about that. Like, I love food. I love cooking. I wouldn't want to get paid to cook, because then it would take something that I enjoy that relaxes me, and it turns it into something I have to put benchmarks on all the time, and I can't relax and just enjoy it anymore. Now it's, did you get paid to do that? But certainly in computers, forensics, information research in the OSINT community, this has definitely been a tradecraft that's grown. The other real big reason why I did this is nobody else had this out there. And to create something in a vacuum is an amazing prospect, because now I've seen what I call back in 1994 internet research now is called OSINT, and there's an entire community and tradecraft built around this. I mean, there are legions of professionals out there who say thank you to me, which is not because I've done anything great. I just happen to step there first. So it's really an inspiration. And I would encourage any of our cyber listeners, if you have that kind of seminal idea that you'd like to turn into something that you think you could do the rest of your life, go for it. The money will follow.
So we heard a bit about Cynthia's story. Anya, how did you get started with Hetherington Group?
Well, it's kind of funny. Back in 2017, I had just graduated from West Virginia, and my original plan was just to take the summer off. I was interning with the NYPD in their crime control strategies unit, and my original plan was to just jump right in September and start my master's in criminal justice. But for whatever reason, that didn't really work out, and I had decided to take the semester off, and I was like, okay, I'll start my master's in January of 2018. So I was like working part-time, just going about my daily life. And then I was like, you know what, like I should really like apply to some jobs, maybe try to gain some experience while I'm trying to get my master's. So scrolling on Indeed, on LinkedIn and stuff, and applying to things here or there. And all of a sudden I saw the ad for the Hetherington Group popped up. I thought the job description was very interesting. It was encompassed everything that I wanted to do in a career. Like Cynthia said, it basically was like you're being curious and you're out there looking for information, and I loved doing that. So I just applied, and I didn't really expect anything of it. I just sent in my resume and a cover letter, and got the call for a phone interview. So it kind of really just happened randomly, and I wasn't totally planning on it happening, but here I am like 2.5 years later.
Rachel, how about yours? How did you get started?
I found the Hetherington Group through my interest in research and analytics. I started interning in college at the Regional Operations Intelligence Center, which is the fusion center for the New Jersey State Police. there was a lot of gathering and sharing of information there. But after college, I found myself in the legal field because that's what a lot of political science majors end up doing, is being in politics or being in the legal field. So landed there and realized I needed to make the career move back to initially what I was most interested in. So I started looking for those really important buzzwords like research and analysts on Indeed, like Anya. And those really help you find tailored jobs to what you're looking for. I found Hetherington Group, and I'm never looking back because this is definitely my career for life.
All of your jobs are very exciting. What are some of the stressful sides that you each experience?
I don't think I have enough minutes in Zoom to tell you about all the stress. Now, actually, it's fairly quantifiable. There are some things, and I'm going to talk from the leadership perspective, because, certainly Rachel and Anya could talk about getting into the cases and how they can be stressful. When you're leading a team of open source investigators, and especially as you bring on young people or people who don't have as much experience either in life or in open source intelligence, when we start looking at programs like the dark web or content, in today's environment, there's a lot of anger and there's a lot of upset folks out there because of what's happening. I mean, COVID, protests, anti-protests. My concern and the biggest point of stress that keeps me up at night is making sure that the health and welfare of my staff is okay. Not that they're just not getting sick, because, that's, of course, you always worry about, your people becoming ill and, taking care of themselves. But really, I've seen analysts burn out. You really have to be prepared mentally. Your fortitude has to be ready to go into open source intelligence. It's not just some TV, cyber spy chick who's going to go out there and click on a couple buttons and discover stuff that's going to pop up in the Pentagon. You're really, as an open source intelligence investigator, you're looking into the heart of some people, and they are putting out their soul in social media, or they're relaying their anger and their hatred, or they're using images of their last ex-boyfriend or girlfriend and sharing them with people because they're so hateful and ugly, and then you got to go and spend time with your family, and you have that image imprinted in your brain. I always say this with the internet: if you're not really keen on doing that type of work, and that you can't compartmentalize and make it something that you do at the office, and then when you go home, you're that very different and happy person, then this is not the role for you. You can't unsee certain things. And although Rachel and Anya are really bright, sunny, and wonderful human beings, we're like, you wouldn't know that we did this kind of work. They probably look at the ugliest things that people share with each other on the internet on an hourly basis. And yet when they walk away, it's like, well, what are you doing this weekend? And how's your day? Because psychologically, you have to be prepped. That is definitely one of the more stressful moments for doing open source intelligence.
And we'll have Rachel go next.
Sure. I'll speak two parts. So one as a manager, because I am the manager of investigations here. Managing is easy when all the employees are, doing everything right and everything's going smoothly. But management is hard when there's hiccups and someone needs help or someone's maybe not doing something correctly. So that's stressful, figuring out how to resolve those issues as a manager and make sure that everyone's happy and improving as a team. As an analyst, I think what's most stressful for me is knowing that we handle very sensitive work for very large, important corporations in the world, and having kind of that power in our hands and that responsibility of keeping their life, property, and reputation safe on a daily basis can definitely weigh on my shoulders from day to day.
And Anya, what are your thoughts on this?
My, what I was going to say is actually very similar to what Rachel said. As an analyst point of view, we do have a lot of high profile clients who are very important people. And especially with recently Corona and the protests going on, it's very stressful, just like Rachel said, weighing on our shoulders and making sure that our clients are safe. I take that as a huge responsibility, always want to have their best interests at heart. And just make sure that they're never at risk. Also, another stress I have sometimes while working cases is when people are looking for certain answers, whether it be a lawsuit or a background investigation, they come to us like saying, like, can you guys find this thing? And maybe sometimes it is possible and sometimes it isn't, but I always want to get the client the answers that they want, and that's stressing them in their personal lives or their professional lives. So sometimes that will weigh down on me, that I have to know that I'm putting my best self out there in my work, trying to get them the answers that they need and to move on, and whatever it may be.
So, Cynthia, how does Hetherington Group impact our community?
Hetherington Group, we've celebrated last year, we celebrated 20 years as a business. So going into our 21st year, we're now mature. And I feel as a business owner and as a leader in this community, it's my responsibility to make sure that I touch the industry as often as possible for the vacuum that's still out there. So we as a organization offer a lot of education, a lot of blogs, a lot of insightful documents. For example, Mary, on my website, we just updated our opt-out document working with another female cyber winner, our champion, which is Parabens, Amber Schroeder. The two of us coalesced a document that talks about how to remove all of your information from the internet, and then how to be aware of how all your own technology can deceive you. You know, your Fitbits, your iPhone, your smart TV. So giving back to the community as a whole is really important, that we continually educate and inform people, because we're also teaching people what OSINT is in that fashion. And then as an institution, we also do training. So we're constantly offering law enforcement appreciation, military, first responders, and special force teams, continuing education to keep them abreast and aware as to what tools and technologies are there, because not every department out there has the budget or the bandwidth to use this service. And then our last real big impact, and what's really grown for us, is the Osmosis conference, where we host an event every year that talks about open source intelligence, and it brings globally the greatest open source investigators together for a couple days in October to share and commingle our ideas about what's happening in the community. Rachel today is actually calling together some information about just literally today's changes on Facebook and how it impacts open source intelligence. So we're on the forefront, being informative, educational, and supportive of all the community.
Can you tell us a little more about Osmosis Con and how it has impacted not only your company, but the community as well?
Osmosis was kind of the hill I needed to climb. I felt that there were no conferences that addressed the researcher and, you know, online investigator. There's a lot of security conferences, fraud conferences, audit, and technology, but there was nothing about the end user who sits there and finds information all day and gets paid for it. So we were ruminating over this for many years prior to launching it, but then finally there were enough actual known OSINT trainers and investigators in the field that I had enough people to invite to be speakers, because you see, there weren't that many speakers 6 years ago. Like, I was it. I was traveling the world teaching every single week because there just wasn't that many trainers. Now we have a lot of trainers in the field that have gotten a lot of prominence because of Osmosis. But what we do is we bring in the best of breed trainers. They talk about what tactics they're using. The conference is very much focused on skills building. So it's not just products being sold to you. It's about actually how to leave there and do something. And then at the same time, you are learning about what products are available, because our community is so small. Alexis, our community is, we could probably still count us globally by the thousands. We're not as big as, you know, you'd like to think. So this really helps gather us together as a community to support each other. Anya runs a Slack strictly for the OSINT community. It's very active. Rachel is the pivot person in the office for all the trainers and technology. So everybody has a role. It's really rewarding. The conference itself has grown by 300% in the last 5 years. And this year we're going global cast. So it's going to be a virtual conference. It's going to be anyone from anywhere can attend because they don't have to worry about getting on a plane. They can sit down and watch it when it's convenient. It's going to be real exciting.
So when you guys were kids, what did you guys all want to be originally? We'll start with Cynthia.
Me. Oh. What did I want to be? I probably wanted to be a lot of things. I wanted to be a leader. Actually, I knew I was a leader. Leadership, I always tease a friend of mine who's trying to get into, he's always telling me what books to read on leadership. And I said to my buddy, I said, here's the deal. Managers read book on leadership. Leaders write them. And I think my goal, I didn't know have a trade craft or something. I probably always wanted to be an investigator, which is actually why I went into library science, because it was also something I enjoyed doing, was being around quiet and sultry individuals. But I think the real challenge for me was always trying to prove myself within the ranks of mostly law enforcement, military. So the start out as wanting to be an investigator and then turning it into a private investigator was really kind of where I landed in the big scheme of things. But Mary, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I'm not sure. Hopefully my two gals here know they exactly want to be Hetherington Group investigators, and that's all I want to hear from them.
So Rachel, what about you? What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was a kid, we're talking elementary school kid, I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to swim with the whales and the dolphins. Has nothing to do with what I do today, and I'm not a diver. Ironically, Cynthia is a diver, so I guess I gave up my passion for the ocean.
That's so funny because I actually thought about being a marine biologist too when I was younger.
Why is there a correlation there? That makes no sense.
I have no idea. Anya, what about you? What did you want to be?
When I was super little, like 5 years old, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I have no idea why that was, but probably just because I love dogs. But middle school age, like early high school, I wanted to be a lawyer for a long time. I always had a deep interest in the criminal justice system and like criminal defense and that type of stuff. But yeah, so I guess that kind of correlates where I am now. I remember in high school, maybe like my junior year, my mom said to me like, oh, I found this like really cool major. It's called criminology, where people like study why people commit crimes and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, that sounds way more interesting than being a lawyer, and sounds bad, but putting in all the time and the money into school. But yeah, I like where I ended up more, I think, than being a lawyer or a veterinarian. Being an analyst is, I think, way more rewarding almost in a sense, and way more interesting. So yeah.
So if each of you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger selves?
Oh, I've always been an incredibly intense individual. I would totally tell myself to ease up. Not every little thing that sits in front of you is going to be the end of your world. You don't have to do it all by a certain age. You should stop and enjoy your accomplishments. And particularly for a lot of young ladies today, a lot of young women in the cyber world, I really want to make sure that they understand that they're constantly worried about, their social media approach, what people see them and how they're perceived. Really, it only matters about how you see yourself. So long as you find yourself centered, valuable, and valued by your own self and by your core people, the people you really can count on, not the 5,000 friends you have on Instagram. That's really it. I did not grow up with Instagram and Facebook and social media. So I was fortunate to have that sense of disconnect from everyone's opinions, but opinions still hit you and you could still be crushed by them. Please keep everything in perspective. And I would probably tell myself that don't perm your hair. Definitely not a good idea. No permanence. And that whole 80s look, yeah, not good. Skip right past it.
Anya, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my high school self to be a little bit more motivated. I wouldn't say I loved school and loved learning and I wish that I maybe was introduced to like the OSINT like cyber community maybe at a little bit of a younger age, because it's so interesting now, and I know it's changing every day, but back then I wish I maybe read up on it more like intelligence wise, just because I feel like I would have been way more educated than I am now, and when I was in college, like trying to almost pick up and get familiar with the field. I didn't, like I said, I really didn't know what it was until I was like in late high school. So I think I would definitely maybe be a little bit more motivated and figure out what you actually want to do in life, rather than my mom coming up to me and be like, hey, this sounds like very interesting and like you would like it. So yeah.
I would tell my younger self to keep my confidence as I grow older. When I was younger, I was extremely talkative, very confident. I was a competitive dancer. I would do solos, be center stage all the time. And somehow as I grew up, social media came and bullies came, and you grow up into adulthood, I just kind of started losing that confidence a bit. And so I would tell myself to make sure to always hold on to that.
Okay, we have time for one more question. And our last question is, what advice do each of you have for the young women who are listening to this event?
Certainly, best advice I can kind of give you today is always wash your makeup off before you go to sleep. You want to make sure you maintain a good skincare. Moisturizer is very important. And don't skip opportunities. If somebody offers you an internship, go for it. Take that opportunity. If you have a chance to go, go diving. Like you liked, 2 gals here said they like marine biology. That doesn't mean that you can't still explore the ocean. And I know why you like marine biology and you came over to the cyber OSINT world. As we look into OSINT, we are looking at an ocean of data, and we're trying to capture that one elusive fish. It's the same thing like when I go scuba diving. I'm always looking for that one unique fish that you don't see in everybody else's photograph. You're always searching. So keep your quest. Have a quest. Keep it going. Moisturize often. Make sure you take your mascara off every night.
Great advice. Rachel, what do you have for the audience?
And my advice would be to never settle. If you think you're in a certain path down life or in your career, it is never too late if you're willing to work hard enough and put in the effort to turn that around, get yourself out of that rut, and get to where you want to be.
Anya, what advice do you have for young women that are watching this?
Mine's pretty similar to both Cynthia and Rachel. I would say, just sounds cliche, but never give up. Keep pushing yourself. Keep taking the opportunities, like Cynthia said, read, watch webinars, just educate yourself in any different means that you can. You might get discouraged sometimes, but there's always plenty of other opportunities out there. So yeah, just never give up. Keep pushing yourself. Had a major.
Guys, I want to jump off of Anya because I want to add to this because I think this is really key. And I'm looking at four women who have all worked with me at some point. And I have to say, this is the one thing that each one of you is very similar in, is that you all stepped up. You didn't shrink back, as Rachel said, like with no confidence and say, well, I don't know, maybe I can't do it. I'm not sure about myself. Like Mary was like, hello, I want to work for you. And I mean, you're halfway across the country from me. And I was just immediately amazed at your level of confidence. I had no idea if you had any competency, but I'm like, I have to give that girl an opportunity. And Alexis worked with us with Osmosis, and she also was amazing. I handed her a microphone and told her to go talk in front of 300 people. Rachel and Anya get this every single day. As the boss in the room, when I see, most especially with a woman, when I see them step up and ask, like, can I have a chance? Employers are really looking, educators are really looking for those strong young women. Even if you're faking it until you make it, go with that. Just use that confidence. Use that little bit of, oh God, I can't believe I just did this to myself. Because I have to tell you, it has succeeded me for 30 years. I have made it here because I faked it and then I made it.
And that will conclude our podcast for today. I want to personally thank Cynthia, Rachel, and Anya for joining us today. Thank you for your time. And for the viewers at home watching, be sure to follow our YouTube channel for more podcasts. And we also have an Instagram and a Facebook account for you to follow.